My brother Raymond hated me for 7 years. After a bitter fight on a freezing winter night, I stormed out and drove away. I never expected a blizzard to fall so suddenly. It blinded my vision. I was attacked by a rogue, injected with a poison that could erase memories and sever blood bonds. My memories became fragmented. When I woke up in the pack's infirmary, Raymond stood there with a cold expression and casually pointed at a gravely ill male werewolf lying in bed. "He's your brother. Stop bothering me." I was stunned. The male werewolf pushed himself up and took my freezing hand, his eyes gentle. "Come on. I'll take you home." After that, I no longer saw Raymond as my brother, just as he wished. So why was he suddenly begging for my acknowledgement after casting me aside so eagerly? 2 weeks ago, I had a huge fight with my brother, Raymond. As I slammed the door on my way out, I shouted, "Even if I die out there and get torn apart by wild beasts, I don't need you. Don't you dare touch my bones." His face turned pale, but he yelled back instantly, "Then you'd better keep your word." I was an omega with barely any wolf in me. When I was attacked by a rogue, I truly thought I was going to die. When I opened my eyes again, my vision was still blurry. Not far away, a healer was speaking softly to Raymond. "We tried everything we could, but the poison has been in her system for some time. No one knows what the side effects will be. I've always hated places that reek of disinfectant." I pushed myself up on the edge of the bed, wanting to walk out and tell them I was ready to leave. Just as I reached the doorway, I heard Raymond's voice. He sounded relieved. "She woke up once last night. She didn't even recognize me. Last night, when I first came to, my vision hadn't cleared yet. I simply couldn't see who was there, so I asked." The healer went on, "She's been unconscious for so long. It's normal that her memory's jumbled. We'll run another test. If there's memory loss, there are always witches' potions. The southern witch, Olivia, this poison mainly targeted the mind of a werewolf and only then the body. My body felt fine. Clearly, the healer's antidote had worked. But before the healer could finish, Raymond cut him off. "No. The less she remembers, the better. Don't let her recall anything." My heart clenched. My hand froze on the doorknob. "Are you really that eager to cast me away?" I pushed the door open. Raymond froze for a split second. Then his expression turned cold again. "Raymond, He frowned at first. Then, he pointed impassively at a gravely ill male werewolf lying in bed. "Miss, you've got the wrong person. That's your brother over there." For a moment, I thought my hearing still hadn't recovered. I stared at him in a daze. My throat felt dry. "What did you just say?" I asked. Raymond's gaze flickered. He was my blood brother. No matter how much he resented me, I couldn't believe he would take advantage of my half-healed state to abandon me and hand me off to a stranger. Still, having clawed back a second chance at life, I wanted to talk to him, just once more. Perhaps this time, the misunderstanding between us could be resolved. I opened my mouth, but he cut me off harshly. "You're sick. Your mind isn't right. I don't blame you, but stop calling me your brother. And stop bothering me." The man Raymond had pointed to was lying in bed on the other side of the ward. His features were striking, and his skin was awfully pale. Anyone else, suddenly saddled with a deranged sister, would have blown up. Yet he seemed unusually calm. "I'm just your brother's classmate. Ask him if he'll accept you as his sister. Don't drag me into it." Raymond spat. With that, he walked away without looking back. My heart sank. This wasn't the first time. He had hated me for 7 years. Yet my tears still welled up. Suddenly, the world turned dark before my eyes. My body went weak and I was about to collapse. The man on the bed moved. He got out of bed and started walking toward me. Was he coming here to mock me and accuse me of feigning weakness? Raymond was gone. Was he going to hurt me now? I felt terrified. At that moment, a hand steadied me. Another hand rested gently on the crown of my head. Several seconds passed before I heard his voice. "Honey, I'm just glad you're awake. Let's go home." Raymond believed I had killed our parents. I couldn't even remember the last time he had called me honey. I tilted my head up at the unfamiliar werewolf before me and, unable to help myself, nodded. All right. I followed a werewolf whose name I didn't even know into an unfamiliar house. The place was spotless. My gaze swept the room and landed on the coffee table, where several small white bottles were lined up in perfect order. I recognized them instantly, enhanced sedatives. That amount could have put 5 werewolves to sleep forever. Beside the bottles sat a black and white photograph of a man with a blank, emotionless face. Noticing my stare, the werewolf walked over, tucked the items away in a drawer, and said softly, "This is a couch. You can sit on it. I'll make you some food." He truly thought something was wrong with my mind, that I couldn't recognize people or even understand what ordinary things were for. I kept staring at those bottles, a strange heaviness settling in my chest. Had he, like me, already given up on living? He stepped into the kitchen, but no sound of cooking followed. When I finally went to check, I found him standing motionless before an empty refrigerator. "Sorry, I'll have to go out and buy some meat." For years, I had thought of myself as a hollow shell without a soul. Yet seeing him like that, I realized some people looked even more like the Walking Dead. He had already reached the door when, against my better judgment, I called out to him, "I like beef." His shoulders stiffened. Winter wind rushed through the crack of the open door, whipping his cloak until it snapped like a banner. I repeated, "Let's have beef for dinner. Is that okay?" His fingers gave the faintest tremor before he nodded and said yes. I watched him leave, then let my gaze drift back to the bottles. Since he had promised to be my brother, he would come back, wouldn't he? My thoughts drifted back to 2 weeks earlier, to the final round of the Moon Acolyte selection. As a useless and wolf-less Omega, I had no right to stand on the sacred altar. It had been my father who carved my name onto the monument before his death. She belongs to the moon goddess. And yet, my own brother Raymond had pushed the monument down in front of every elder. She's just an Omega without a wolf. She's unworthy. That night, I had a bitter fight with Raymond and left the house. Not long after, the rogue attacked me. I sank back onto the couch. The moment I closed my eyes, the nightmares returned. My parents should have lived out their lives in peace, but were instead buried beneath collapsing rubble. I had been dragged from the wreckage by werewolf guards and was forced to carry their stolen years forward. In my dreams, Raymond's hateful eyes always found me. "Mom and Dad are dead. Why are you still alive? After all these years, don't you feel guilty at all?" Of course I did. That was why, in every dream, there was fire, blood, and my parents' faces. I jolted awake, and almost without realizing, I slid open the drawer and slipped out the bottles like a thief. But just then a phone rang on the coffee table. The sound was so sharp and sudden that I jumped, dropping the bottles to the floor. My heart pounded as I grabbed the phone, only to realize that it wasn't mine. I pressed the button, and the call connected. A furious male voice exploded through the line. "Adrian Sanders. More than 700 million. If you think you're keeping every cent from me, forget it. I'm your father. Your sister died for you. She's gone now, and that's perfect. By blood. Everything of hers belongs to me. You think you can give it away? Over my dead body." By the time I came back to my senses and quickly hung up the phone, I had already heard more than enough. There was a sheet of paper lying on the carpet. I picked it up. It was a medical report. The diagnosis read end-stage heart failure. In the patient column, the name written there was Adrian Sanders, the same one I had just heard on the phone. That was when I remembered the recent news regarding the leader of the Pack's most powerful mercenary corps, Orion. He had suddenly announced that he would hand over his authority to his deputy. So this was the reason his body was already failing him. I put the report back in the drawer together with the bottles of pills. Time passed slowly. Outside, heavy rain began pouring down, and still he hadn't returned. Had he really gone off to die? I threw on a coat and ran out into the storm. His car was still parked in the front yard, so he couldn't have gone far. I headed directly to the mall nearby. The weather was freezing. I searched 3 floors of the mall, but didn't see him anywhere. Suddenly, a voice I knew all too well came from behind me. "Are you following me?" he asked with suppressed anger. I turned to see Raymond standing not far away. He was glaring daggers at me. Beside him was Jenna, the daughter of the Shadow Pact Chamber's president. The same man Raymond had recently struck a deal with. Rumor had it that Raymond had even taken Jenna as his foster sister. That president never stopped praising him for being loyal and righteous. In the end, he simply didn't want to acknowledge me as his real sister. I held the umbrella tightly. The sting of humiliation rose like a tide in my chest, but I tried my best not to let it show. "I wasn't following you. I came here for something else." The anger in his eyes only became more obvious. He snorted. "You've never set foot in this place before. Do you expect me to believe that?" Before I could answer, I caught sight of a familiar figure behind him. Adrian was staring at me in silence. Raymond saw me ignoring him, and his voice grew impatient. "I'm talking to you. Stop following me. That's against the law. And I'm not your family. Do you hear me?" My gaze shifted to the bag in Adrian's hand. Inside was freshly butchered beef, already cleaned and packed. So he really had gone to buy beef? For some reason, I couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Raymond's expression shifted, as if he had seen a ghost. The moment his gaze landed on Adrian, his expression changed drastically. "What the hell is this werewolf doing here?" I finally pulled my gaze away from Adrian and looked at Raymond. "I'm here to find my brother," I said calmly. Raymond was still staring at Adrian suspiciously. His voice snapped with fury as he barked at me. "How many times have I told you? I'm not your brother. Stop calling me that." I ignored him. After walking past him, I stopped in front of Adrian. Glancing down, I saw his boots were dusted with the distinct mud from the riverbank. He had wanted to die, but hadn't gone through with it. Instead, he had turned around and gone to the market to buy the beef he promised me. I reached out and gently took the bag from his hand. "Let's go," I said softly. Adrian shivered a little. He hadn't even spoken yet when Raymond suddenly burst forward in rage. "You're going home with him? Rose? Are you out of your mind?" I looked back at him, my voice faint and confused. "This is my brother. Of course I'm going home with him. Didn't you already know that?" Raymond's expression darkened. His words were stuck in his throat, and for a long moment, not a single word came out. I held onto Adrian's arm and started moving forward, but Raymond rushed ahead to block our way. His whole body trembled with fury as he shouted, "You've been away from the villa all afternoon. Don't tell me you really plan on leaving with this stranger. Are you insane? You don't even have a wolf. And you dare go with a stranger? Do you want to end up dead?" From the way Raymond raged, it seemed he had forgotten that he couldn't wait to sever all ties with me only moments ago. His eyes were bloodshot, and he suddenly grabbed Adrian by the collar. "You're abducting a minor. I could drag you straight before the Pack Council right now." Adrian's voice was calm, almost detached. "She's 16. She can make her own choices." Raymond's expression darkened, his fists clenching at his sides. My heart clenched in panic. Adrian's health was already so fragile. If Raymond kept shaking him like this, he might collapse right there and then. More werewolves began stopping to watch the scene. My heart raced. I shoved Raymond hard, and my voice rose in a fury. "Let go of my brother." Raymond worked in the Pack Council and he cared about appearances. After a tense few seconds, he finally released Adrian and sneered, "Your brother? Huh? Then let me ask him something simple. What's her name?" "Rose," I blurted out before Adrian could speak. Raymond's face twisted with rage, like he might attack me any second. "I was asking him, who told you to answer? You're playing the part well enough, so why don't you keep pretending to have amnesia? You know better than anyone that he doesn't even know you. He doesn't even know your name." I looked him dead in the eye and asked flatly, "Are you out of your mind?" Then, I turned away and laced my fingers through Adrian's. We started to walk. Me, Raymond's bitter laugh cut through the air. "You think pretending you don't know me will wash away your sins? Our parents died because of you. How can you still live like nothing happened? My steps faltered for half a beat before I quickened my pace. Back in the car, I stared out the window. My mind was tangled and restless. In my ears, all I could hear was Raymond's voice. You killed our parents. Just being alive makes me hate you. A werewolf like you should never have been allowed to survive. I had been premature, born frail and weak. Because of that, our parents poured all their love and attention into me. They treated me like royalty. Every year on my birthday, they would call friends and family to celebrate weeks in advance, showering me with gifts. No matter how busy they were, they never missed a milestone. My first lost tooth, my first successful hunt, my first day at the Young Werewolves Academy. As a child, I was proud. I thought I was a cub especially favored by the moon goddess. Until the year I turned 7. It was Raymond's birthday. Our parents had gone out of town for a gathering, and when I came home, I found him curled alone in a corner with nothing but a piece of dried meat smaller than his paw. That night, I swore to myself I'd give him a proper birthday someday. The chance came at his coming-of-age ceremony. Our parents had left early that morning for official business in the Northern Territory. My mother, uneasy about leaving me, had wanted to take me with them. I fought her tooth and nail, crying until she finally sighed and relented. She ended up telling the maids to watch over me. Alone in the house, I secretly began planning a celebration for Raymond. I used years of saved allowance to reserve a hall at Moonlight Tavern on the outskirts of town. I even contacted some of his friends ahead of time. By evening, I was just about to message Raymond to send him there when the ground trembled beneath my feet. A brick crashed down from above, knocking me to the floor. My ears rang, filled only with the roar of collapsing stone. Seeing the chandelier was about to fall, I tried to crawl to safety, but my limbs were too weak. In the nick of time, my parents descended from above and threw themselves over me. In the dark, my mother's weak voice whispered against my ear. When I was carrying you, Raymond was only 3. He was so full of energy. Once, he begged us to take him to see the fireworks at the local festival, but the roads were icy. I slipped and the fall triggered early labor. I was bedridden for weeks. You came into this world small, frail, and far too soon. Raymond felt guilty ever since. That's why he never let us celebrate Raymond's birthdays. He thought Raymond deserved the punishment. My head felt increasingly heavy. My parents repeatedly urged me in a soft voice, "Rose, don't sleep. Hold on a little longer. Stay awake." I didn't remember how I was pulled from the wreckage. When I opened my eyes, what greeted me were 2 lifeless bodies. I screamed in denial, reaching for the werewolves who had rescued me. That's impossible. I just heard them. They were talking to me. How can they be dead? One of the werewolf guards spoke gently. That was a recording. Our parents hadn't gone out of town after all. When the quake struck, they rushed back to the villa to save me. The shards of the silver chandelier had pierced them beyond healing. But with the last of their strength, they had held the roof up through the night, keeping it from crushing me. Due to severe blood loss, they knew they wouldn't survive. So, they recorded their voices, replaying them again and again at my side to keep me awake. Raymond, meanwhile, had been away studying in another pack, untouched by the quake. When he returned and saw the bodies, his eyes welled with tears for the first time. He rounded on me, voice raw with grief and rage. Weren't they supposed to take you with them? Why were you home alone? Did you throw another tantrum to get to the theme park? Did you force them to stay for you? No one ever mentioned again the surprise coming-of-age ceremony I had planned for Raymond. As for the truth behind our parents' deaths, my grief and guilt were more than enough. He didn't need to know. That day, he had said to me, "Rose, you really make me hate you. I hate you more than anything." From then on, he never once looked me in the eye. I was trapped inside those memories. Suddenly, I felt someone patting my arm and calling me softly. I jerked awake, gasping for air. The car had already stopped in the Villa district. Adrian sat beside me, watching with worried eyes. I turned to him and whispered, "Actually, I've always regretted it. Adrian stayed silent for a few seconds before nodding. His voice was gentle. I know. I forced a smile. He was nothing but a stranger. What could he possibly know? And yet, that single reply made me break down. My tears fell harder because his voice sounded so much like Raymond's voice from the past, the brother who used to protect me. After we got out of the car, I silently followed Adrian into the unfamiliar villa. I hadn't taken more than a few steps when I felt out of breath. My heart raced, and I felt an immense headache. The healer had once explained that this was an emotional meltdown. Depressed werewolves often broke down without warning. That was when they should find someplace safe, somewhere they could at least talk to their wolf. But I had lost mine. My wolf had all but vanished the night of the earthquake, gone with my parents. Raymond refused to forgive me. There was no one left to confide in. I stood frozen, clutching my head. Adrian's voice was louder than usual. Are you tired? Do you want me to carry you? He steadied me on his back. Let's go home and eat. The sudden warmth made my nose sting. My tears spilled uncontrollably, dripping onto his shoulder. After losing my parents, I was diagnosed with depression. Dreamed of that night again and again. The healer once suggested I talk it out with my brother. But with our parents gone and our family on the brink of collapse, Raymond had been forced to shoulder everything alone. I couldn't pile my weakness onto him either. Adrian roasted the beef in the simplest way. Halfway through dinner, he suddenly put down his fork. Actually, he hesitated. I knew he was searching for words to say that he and I were complete strangers. I pretended not to hear, ladling him a bowl of broth. It tastes a bit spicy. Next time, maybe we should use less pepper. He didn't bring it up again. That night, I tossed and turned. Sleep was impossible. Feeling restless, I got out of bed. Just as I opened my door, I heard violent coughing from the room next door, and beneath it, the sound of dry retching. I knocked, but nobody answered. The coughing only grew worse. I pushed the door open. A draft came out, carrying the bitter smell of smoke and alcohol. Moonlight streamed in through the window, illuminating Adrian curled on the sofa, his broad back hunched in pain. The pale light landed on the blanket at his feet, dark, damp stains spreading there. It was blood from late-stage heart failure. Hearing my footsteps, he scrambled to pull open a drawer, shoving in bottles of pills and half-empty liquor. There was still blood smeared on the corner of his mouth. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have seen this. I didn't answer and only sat down beside him. They found you a compatible heart? Maybe you'd still have a chance. Adrian's voice trembled. I don't deserve to live. Back then, my sister Emma was already consumed by illness. She chose to leave on her own, afraid I'd drown in the medical debt. All these years I worked myself to the bone, clawing for money, for connections, doing whatever it took. But in the end, everything came too late. None of it brought her back. He broke down sobbing. But if you really chose to give up on life, wouldn't that be the biggest slap in the face to her? I said softly, what if we tried to find you a heart together? Adrian looked at me. As the first rays of morning light spilled into the room, he slowly nodded. Suddenly, I felt as though my life had a purpose. I had taken on the mission of finding him a new heart. One evening, just before Christmas, I was in the kitchen helping Adrian prepare dinner when a call came in. The number was from faraway Northvale. It was the hospital. In that instant, I could hear my deafening heartbeat in my own chest. When I hung up, I burst into tears, laughing and crying all at once, and ran straight into Adrian's arms. Adrian, they found one. A perfect match. We found it. He staggered back a couple of steps, nearly hitting the fridge. Then he slowly wrapped an arm around me. With a trembling smile, he whispered, "Thank you, Rose." Tears still in my eyes, I looked up at him, catching that flicker of hope reawakening inside him. "Thank you, too." Northvale Hospital urged us to come as soon as possible to prepare for the transplant. There was a catch, though. Adrian's condition was so critical that he would need the very best heart specialist alive. The best of the best was Daniel Warren, a renowned healer working in Central City of Southern Territory. After weeks of digging, I finally learned that Daniel would return north at the end of the year, spending the holidays with his elderly mother in his original pack. Unable to reach him by phone, I decided to go in person. Sincerity would come across better face to face. Snowstorms swept across the Northern Territory for days. I landed in Central City and drove the rest of the way, only to find the road leading to Daniel's home blocked off by ice. I got out of the car and walked for 5 hours in the freezing cold until my body turned fully numb. In the yard, a middle-aged man was clearing snow. When I stumbled closer and recognized his face, Daniel himself, relief surged through me. My body gave out, and I collapsed to my knees in the snow. Startled, he threw aside the broom and hurried forward to catch me. "Miss, who are you looking for? What happened to you?" Before I could answer, 2 people walked up. I froze. Raymond and Jenna Kramer, the daughter of his latest business partner. "Who's this?" Jenna asked while walking over. Raymond appeared right after. "Here, put this on before you freeze." But when his eyes landed on me, crumpled in the snow, his expression darkened. He stormed over. "Rose, are you out of your mind? I told you I'm not your brother. And you still stalk me here in the middle of a blizzard." It wasn't that he wanted to misunderstand me, but in a border pack like this, who would believe I just happened to be passing by? His expression hardened. Without wasting another word, he threw his coat over my shoulders and snapped, "Inside. Now." He grabbed my arm and tried to drag me along, but I shoved him off. "I'm not following you." I turned to Daniel. "Daniel, I came here for you." I pulled the file of Adrian's medical records from inside my coat. My hands were trembling, and my voice cracked with desperation as I pleaded, "Please, I'm begging you. The risks are high, but this is my brother's only chance at a new heart." Raymond stared at me, stunned, opening his mouth several times but unable to form words. He couldn't understand why I would go this far to do all this for a wolf I wasn't even supposed to know. Then, his expression turned to one of fear. He stared at me. "Rose, don't tell me your memory loss was real?" Daniel started walking into the house. "Let's take this inside." My heart clenched, and I tried to shove Raymond off me so I could follow. However, he only gripped me harder. "Are you out of your damn mind? He's a stranger. The roads are blocked. The weather is lethal, and you nearly froze yourself to death. All just to find a healer for that man." I yanked against his hold, but Daniel had already stepped inside and disappeared, with Jenna following close behind. Tears filled my eyes, and my voice cracked from anger. "He's my brother, my family. You're the one I don't even know." Raymond looked like he was about to blow up. "He's not your brother. I am. Rose, how can you not see it?" His grip was crushing no matter how I fought. At last, exhausted, I gave up, meeting his gaze with a bitter smile. "Weren't you the one who told me he was my brother?" Raymond froze, lips trembling. "No, the things I said before, they weren't." I was about to reply when a figure appeared in the corner of my vision. It was Adrian. He had followed us here. His clothes were covered in snow, and he looked worried. The second he saw me, he sighed in relief, but then his gaze shifted to Raymond. He faltered for a moment before gradually looking down. Adrian stood there silently, not taking another step forward. Raymond's voice trembled, yet it carried grim resolve. "Enough. This ends here. Stay put. I'll take you home, Rose. Please." Adrian turned around, moving slowly and painfully back the way he had come. My heart ached so much I could hardly breathe. "Adrian!" I shouted. With his failing health, just reaching this place must have drained every ounce of his strength. Sending him back alone in that condition could kill him. Adrian's steps faltered. He didn't look back. Raymond's eyes went wide with rage. "Rose, get it through your head. I'm your real brother." That fragile silhouette ahead of us stopped for a moment before continuing. I tried to struggle free from Raymond's grasp. "Let go of me." Raymond's eyes were red, and he snorted. "Why did you think he took you in?" I investigated. It turns out he had a sister who died a few years ago. She was merely a teenager then. Thud. Adrian had collapsed silently onto the ground. Fear took over, and I started crying profusely. I lost control and started shouting at Raymond. Let go. Get out of my way. I'm going to save him. My tears fell onto the snow. Couldn't be stopped. I tried my best to pull away from Raymond. Please let go of me. I want to go there and save him. Raymond held onto me. His face was pale. He moved close to my ear and whispered, No way. Rose, it's me. Look closely. I'm your brother. I shook my head hard and denied it. You're not. I shoved at him, but the more I struggled, the weaker I became. I smiled bitterly. Sir, you were just my brother's classmate. What's wrong? Did your memory start failing too? Panic and unease suddenly clouded Raymond's eyes. Just then, Daniel stepped out of the house. He frowned. Why aren't you coming inside? When he took in the scene, his expression darkened, and he yelled, What are you waiting for? Get him inside. Daniel rushed over to check Adrian's condition, shouting for help as he bent down and hauled him onto his back. With much effort, he carried him inside. Raymond finally let go. I scrambled to my feet and stumbled after Daniel. Inside, Adrian's face was pale. His lips were turning dark. My hands shook as I moved closer. Daniel murmured, He's still alive. He immediately began treating Adrian by attaching an 4-drip. That night, I spread out a fur pelt by the bed so I could stay close and watch over him. For a werewolf with heart failure, the cold was deadly. After the ordeal he had endured during the day, I couldn't risk leaving him unattended. With a matched donor heart finally secured, real hope within reach, any small hiccup could cost his life. Daniel glanced at me lying on the floor and frowned. Do you think you can sleep like that? Want me to take the night watch? I shook my head. It's fine. I'll sit here. He studied me for a moment before saying softly, I remember you used to be so delicate. I froze. I suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Do you remember me?
Daniel sighed.
You've gotten so thin. I remember when you were little, stubborn, mischievous. Your parents and brother spoiled you endlessly. Yes, Daniel was an old acquaintance. Back when my parents were alive, he had been close to my father. That was why I had believed I could move him, that he'd help if I came all this way through snow and ice. After a long silence, he added quietly, Heart transplants have the lowest success rate of any transplant surgery. As a healer, all I can do is try. Don't set your hopes too high. His words filled me with dread, but also anticipation. I wanted to thank him, but I was too emotional to speak. Rest early. You look unwell yourself. Take care of your own body too, he said gently. The donor heart was found. The most skilled healer was here. For the first time in years, I felt real hope and joy. The next morning, Adrian finally woke. While we talked, the door opened. Raymond stood in the doorway and said awkwardly, I made breakfast. Let's eat. I turned to Adrian. Can you get up? I'll help you to the table. But from the doorway, Raymond cut in. Daniel said he needs bed rest. I brought it up. He'll eat here. He came in with a tray and set up a small table beside the bed. Adrian smiled gently at me. I can eat by myself. You should go. Raymond snorted by the door. He's not crippled. No need to wait on him. He always spoke without holding back like that. Since our parents' passing, I hadn't tasted his cooking again, until now. I sat quietly at the table, eating the scrambled egg and toast before me. The house was so silent. It felt as if death itself lingered in the air. Afraid of the suffocating silence, I finally said, The egg's a little burned. Raymond let out a displeased snort. Isn't that how you like it? He took my plate and muttered, With the cold outside and the roads blocked, you're lucky to have food at all, and you're still being picky. He went back to the kitchen. I heard the sound of the spatula clanging against the pan. A moment later, he came out with another plate of scrambled eggs. He dropped it on the table with a thud. This is the last time. Next time, cook for yourself if you don't like it. That stung. Raymond's voice carried a simmering resentment. The weather's cleared today. We can leave this afternoon. Finish eating, pack your things, and come back with me. He suddenly looked up the stairs. That man's got money. Don't you dare get involved with him anymore. Let him find someone else to fetch him and deal with his own treatment. Stop worrying about people who only mean trouble. So that was it. Calling me to breakfast wasn't just about eating. It was to pressure me into leaving Adrian behind. I swallowed the food in my mouth, but suddenly, I felt awful. I set down my fork and looked directly at Raymond. And how exactly is he trouble? For a second, Raymond's expression softened, but upon hearing my words, it darkened again. You're still defending him? A stranger. You nearly killed yourself, trekking across the snow, just to beg for a healer for him. He sounded increasingly angry. Look at you. What have you become? Did you care this much back when our parents died? The pain I had buried for 7 years suddenly pierced through my chest. I shot to my feet and snorted. I no longer wanted to pretend anymore. What have I become? Raymond, it was you who told me he was my brother. You told me to stop bothering you, to go with him. Wasn't everything exactly as you wanted? His lips trembled, guilt flashing in his eyes. However, it was quickly smothered by rage. So all those years you pretended not to know me, it was an act. I stopped avoiding his gaze and looked him straight in the eye. That's right. I was pretending, but you were the one who told me to go. 7 years ago, I stayed behind after a fight with our parents. I couldn't have predicted that the earthquake would take their lives. No one blames myself more than I do. So tell me, what do you want from me? For 7 years, I had dreamed of that day every single night. If dying could atone for it, I would have gladly left this world in my dreams. My eyes burned, so red they felt ready to bleed, as I stared at Raymond. Why don't you just tell me what it is you want from me? Or better yet, why don't you just kill me? Raymond stared at me in disbelief, emotions warring in his gaze. His voice, when it came, was cold. Rose, if you die, do you think our parents will come back? You being stubborn, that's what killed them. Living with that guilt, suffering every day, that's the punishment you deserve. My chest felt hollow. An emptiness spread through me. Even my breath smelled like blood. After a long silence, I forced myself to calm down and nodded. Fine, have it your way. But I'm not going back with you. I brushed past him and headed upstairs. Behind me, there was a long stretch of silence. Then suddenly his voice, soft, almost tender. Rose. That gentle voice was almost foreign to me. My heart clenched violently. I knew Raymond too well. In over 20 years of being siblings, I had learned to read every tone. That voice filled me with dread. I stopped and turned back to look at him. There was a smile on his face as he said slowly, "Do you really think Daniel's going to treat him?" I frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Raymond, calm and self-assured, walked toward me at an unhurried pace. "You probably don't know this, but Daniel is famous around here for being a dutiful son. His mother's not doing too well right now. I've even been keeping her company the past few days. I told the old lady that holidays are better with family close by. So tell me, do you really think Daniel would abandon his mother during the holidays just to take care of some stranger?" I could hardly believe Raymond would say something so vile. I was furious, and before I knew what I was doing, my hand flew. Smack! Raymond froze, the sneer still etched on his face, suspended there, unfinished. My palm burned with pain. Realizing what I had just done, my mind spun in chaos, regret, relief, I couldn't tell which. I glared at him. "Are you insane? That's a life." I went back upstairs to tend to Adrian. The blizzard had passed, and the skies were finally clear. Adrian couldn't afford more delays. His condition demanded we pack our things and leave the country immediately. Whether or not Raymond managed to convince Daniel to stay, we had no choice but to go. That afternoon, I brought Adrian downstairs. Daniel was waiting in the living room, seated on the couch beside a packed suitcase. When he saw us, he set down his newspaper and rose to his feet. "Let's go." I was caught between surprise and joy. I had heard he barely ever came home to visit his mother, and after what Raymond had said yesterday, Daniel's voice was deep. Did you really think my mother would throw a fit and demand I stay? We left together. On the way, Daniel mentioned, Raymond went into town with Jenna to buy food. Roads were blocked for days, and she insisted on getting some fresh air. As the car passed through the market, I spotted them, Raymond and Jenna, standing at a candy vendor's stall. The man handed Jenna a few sugar figurines. She slipped her coffee into Raymond's hand before casually digging into his coat pocket for his wallet to pay. A moment later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Raymond. It was a simple question. What do you want to eat? Attached were a few pictures of food stalls. The clearest one showed a vendor selling soup. A memory hit me. When I was little, I once whined about wanting soup. Raymond, still only a teenager, scolded me, saying kids who ate late at night would get stomachaches. Yet later that night, he had sneaked out and come back with a steaming bowl of soup that was still warm. I tucked my phone away without replying. At the airport, just before boarding, a call came in from a Northvale real estate company. They wanted to confirm our arrival time so we could sign the contract. When the call ended, Daniel looked a little surprised. So you're planning to settle down over there? He sighed. Had I known, I wouldn't have lied to Raymond this morning. I told him you wouldn't be leaving for another 3 days. That's the only reason he agreed to take Jenna into town. Since you're really not coming back, maybe call him before we board. I froze for a few seconds before shaking my head. I won't. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. My phone buzzed again and again in my pocket, but I ignored it. I rose to my feet and walked straight through the gate. Raymond got into the driver's seat and slowly drove away from the mountain. An unease gnawed at him. It had been there ever since he and Jenna left Daniel's house, clinging to him like a shadow. He knew Adrian could never get out of bed so soon, and Rose wouldn't leave him. And yet, the weight in his chest pressed heavier and heavier. Jenna lingered at a stall to buy some food. The snow had only just melted, and the wind was still chilly. It was nearly New Year's Eve. The village was alive with festivity. Bright decorations were hung, and villagers moved around in pairs and groups. Laughter and chatter were everywhere. Raymond suddenly remembered every holiday. He used to return to his grandmother's house with his parents and Rose. They would visit together as a family. But then his grandmother passed away. Their parents, too, were gone. After that, he and Rose never really celebrated again. So when he saw her now, fussing over some stranger's illness, dragging herself home with another werewolf, his fury flared like wildfire. Did she really believe he would stoop so low as to stop a healer from saving someone's life? Raymond hated her stubbornness, hated that she had stayed behind that night and cost their parents their lives in the earthquake. But what he hated even more was that in her eyes, he no longer existed. Standing on the edge of the crowded market, Raymond's mind spun. Confusion, anger, grief, longing. They crashed into him like a storm. He couldn't help himself. He snapped a few photos of the food stalls and sent them to Rose. But her silence was absolute. There was no reply. The dread inside him only deepened. When they got back in the car, Jenna spoke hesitantly. Sorry for wasting your time, but he was acting really strange today. I told him I could go alone. Why insist I needed someone to come with me? I'm not a child anymore. This broad daylight. Who needs a babysitter? Raymond's grip on the wheel faltered. Suddenly, he understood what that gnawing unease meant. He remembered the odd look on Daniel's face that morning when Jenna wanted to head out by herself. The man had insisted that he go with Jenna. The unease turned to terror. He had been completely and utterly wrong. When they arrived at the Warren residence, the place was nearly deserted. Only Daniel's mother and a few guards remained. Raymond scoured the house, upstairs and down. Rose was gone. Daniel had tricked him. Had she gone to the Northern Territory? Sweat dripped down Raymond's forehead. He forced himself into the old woman's room and tried to sound calm. Did they leave for the Northern Territory? The old woman was unusually lucid today. Sitting by the window and bathing in the weak winter sun, She turned to him with a faint smile. They've already set out. Off to heal that gentleman, didn't you know? Word is, Rose and that man are planning to settle down there for good. Raymond's phone was still in his palm. The chat window was glowing. The pictures he had sent her were all unread and unanswered. Her words struck like a hammer. The phone slipped from his numb hand, crashing against the cold floor. She was gone. Truly, this time he had lost his little sister. A sudden thought occurred to him. He heard that 7 years ago, when Rose insisted on staying behind, it was because she had been preparing his 18th birthday surprise. That wasn't a lie. With a blank expression, Raymond dialed Daniel's number again. This time, the call went through. Raymond's heart clenched. He was nearly crying tears of joy. Daniel, you know where Rose is, don't you? Please tell me. The voice on the other end cut him off, calm and unyielding. Raymond, given your behavior these past few days, I won't reveal anything about Rose or Adrian's whereabouts. Raymond panicked. I swear I won't interfere with the treatment. I just need to know if she's okay. I'm really worried about her. Her heart isn't good. I heard her tell the healer she often struggles to breathe. Daniel's tone remained steady. I've reviewed her records. Her heart is perfectly healthy. The shortness of breath comes from years of recurring depression. Raymond snapped instinctively. That's impossible. She's been fine all these years, hasn't she? How could it be something psychological? He suddenly stopped talking. Had she really been fine? He thought back over the last 7 years. Her lifeless eyes and the way she seemed to drift through days as if nothing mattered. She had no interest in anything and rarely spoke. She barely even looked at him. Even when he lashed out, she appeared too exhausted to fight back. Raymond had always assumed it was some undiagnosed illness. He had even thought of asking Daniel to examine her. Never once had he truly considered that the wounds might run deeper, hidden inside her mind. Daniel went on post-traumatic stress disorder, severe depression. It began 7 years ago. Raymond, she never told you because she knew you were already drowning in grief over your parents. She didn't want to make it worse. But did you forget? She lost them too. She suffered just as much. The words grew faint, echoing like they came from a distance. You turned all your pain and rage onto her. She carried the guilt, the fear of watching your parents die right beside her. Who could she turn to? With no release, no one to lean on, the torment buried itself deeper and deeper, until it became an illness. Raymond's legs buckled. He nearly collapsed where he stood. Daniel continued to be upfront. There's proof in group chat logs from that day. Rose stayed behind to prepare your birthday surprise. She couldn't have known an earthquake would strike. All these years, did you truly not believe that? Or did you simply refuse to accept that your parents' deaths weren't her fault? That they were nobody's fault? So instead, you chose to shut your eyes and blame Rose for being willful and for killing them. That fragile veil Raymond had hidden behind, thin as spider silk, tore wide open. The pain slammed into him, sharp and raw, like molten lead coursing through his veins. No one could shoulder that blame. Their parents had been taken by something merciless and uncontrollable. It was a natural disaster and nothing more. Daniel sighed softly. Raymond, the truth is, her suffering runs deeper than yours. You say you care about her, but do you even understand her? Did it ever occur to you that she, too, couldn't survive the weight of that day? Raymond barely heard Daniel. All he could hear was his voice, echoing in his skull. The vile things he had once spat at her without mercy. Rose, why weren't you the one who died? Why are you still alive? No, he had never truly faced their parents' deaths. He had poured every drop of grief, every shard of rage onto her, because he had nowhere else to put it. Never once had he considered, never truly seen, that they should have leaned on each other. They should have healed together. Back then, she had been only 15. For 7 years, she had lived with more pain than anyone. Raymond pressed his trembling hands to his face. His body heaved with sobs that tore through him. He understood now. She was gone for good. She had chosen another home, a new life across the sea. She had chosen to leave him behind. He had lost his parents, and in the end, by his own hand, he had lost the only person who truly saw him for who he was. The night we set foot in Northvale, unease crept over me after Adrian was admitted to the hospital. Maybe it was the strangeness of being in a foreign land. I lay on the narrow cot beside his bed. For the first time in years, the nightmares returned. Raymond's voice was hysterical while he accused me. In the dream, my parents stood there, covered in blood, looking at me with grief and disappointment. I jolted awake. The room was drowned in silence. The steady beeping of the monitor echoed like a hammer in my chest. Adrian slept beside me, his body frail but resting. He needed every ounce of strength for the surgery ahead. This was the crucial stretch. I should have been watching over him, but the shadow inside me clawed its way up, dragging me toward the edge. I slipped out of the ward. The winter night in Northvale was harsh. I wandered up to the hospital rooftop. One step over the rail, that was all it would take. Then I could see my parents again, beg for forgiveness, and end the pain. My foot lifted, trembling, reaching for the other side. Behind me came a voice, warm and steady. "Rose." I turned around and saw Adrian far away. He didn't rush over. He just stood a distance away, his voice soft. "Looking at the stars?" The healer left a document that needs a family signature. "You know I don't have any family left. Could I trouble you for that?" He was lying. At 3 in the morning, no one was there but the nurse on the night shift. The transplant surgery would soon begin. Adrian's gaze held mine. His voice rose a little, firm but gentle. "Hey, I promised you, after the surgery I'll live. I'll really live." The wind swept between us, tugging at his hair and hospital gown. We stood on opposite ends of the rooftop, locked in silence. Then he called again, louder this time. "Rose, we made a promise that we'd live together. If I'm alive alone, what's the point?" Tears streamed down my cheeks before I knew it. I forced a shaky smile. I was only looking for stars, but it seems the clouds won tonight. Adrian walked toward me. He held out his hand. "Come down. Let me help you." I stared at his hand, marked with bruises from countless needles. Near his wrist, a thin streak of dried blood. He must have pulled out the for himself to find me. For a moment I froze. I reached for him. The instant my hand touched his other arm wrapped tight around my waist, pulling me down from the ledge in one swift, strong, and startlingly tender motion. His breath brushed against my ear as he whispered, voice trembling yet steady, "Rose, we're going to live. Both of us." After that night, the nightmares never came back. Adrian bought the house and signed the papers. He sat propped up on his bed, flipping through photos of the rooms on his phone. His eyes lit up as he talked to me. "This bedroom's yours. We can add a balcony too. Open the door, and there's the beach and the sea." Hope gleamed in his gaze like the brightest star piercing the polar night. I thought to myself, when he makes it through the surgery, I'll find my own place, a job, my own life. Yet, I couldn't bring myself to crush his joy at that moment, so I smiled and nodded. "Okay." He was overjoyed. Then, he spoke of the past and how his sister had always dreamed of visiting Northvale. There were the long polar nights, the bright aurora, and the legend of the forest of Northvale. His eyes shone when he spoke. "After the surgery, let's stay here for a few years. Will you go exploring with me? See the world with me?" His face had turned even paler after we arrived in Northvale. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. "Okay." Adrian felt a little embarrassed. "Is there anywhere you want to go? I'll come with you too. We could." He broke off, coughing, his face turning a little red. "Yes." I cut in quickly. "There are many places I want to see. I'll tell you after the surgery." Adrian smiled and nodded. "Okay." That night, he vomited again. Everything he had eaten came up. Then he coughed up blood. I knew that if the transplant didn't happen, soon he wouldn't last. Just then, the door burst open. Daniel rushed in. "The donor suddenly passed away. Prepare for surgery immediately. The heart transplant starts now." To ensure the donor's heart was in good condition, the transplant had to be performed within 12 hours of the donor's death. Daniel immediately gathered the medical team and rushed Adrian toward the operating room, quickly changing into scrubs himself. As Adrian lay on the bed, being wheeled out of the ward, he reached out and gently clasped the back of my hand. My palms were slick with sweat from nerves, but he smiled and whispered to reassure me. "Don't be afraid, everything will be fine." I watched as he was brought into the operating room. Suddenly, chaos broke out on the donor's side. When I rushed over, I saw the donor's family blocking the medical team, knives in their hands. Grief had driven them past reason. "We don't want to give away his heart. We want our son buried whole. Only then can he be healthy in the next life. He can't be missing even a single part." The donor and his family had already signed the donation consent forms, but raw, fresh grief cut too deep. To see their loved one's heart taken just after dying, it was more than they could bear. Time was slipping away. One of the healers, desperate, blurted out the worst possible thing. "The dead are gone. There is no next life." It was like stepping on a landmine. The anger went off without warning. Even those who had only been wavering now surged forward, blocking the way to the operating room. Their eyes burned with anguish and fury as they shouted, voices shaking. "There is a next life. Who are you to say otherwise? Who gave you the right to take our child's life and give it to someone else?" My mind was buzzing. I couldn't think. With the family standing firm, there was nothing we could do. Soon, the donor's body was taken away. Meanwhile, Adrian waited in the operating room. I had asked him, "Try to live, okay?" He had promised me he would, but all that hope collapsed into nothing. Adrian never got the second heart. His body grew weaker and weaker, his breath sustained only by machines. His frame was wasted, his skin stretched thin over his bones. One morning, I sneaked into the hospital kitchen to make dessert, hoping to share it with him. Adrian ate half of it, then vomited it all back up, the food stained bright red with blood. That night, his coughing worsened. He gasped for air, blood gurgling up with every fit. He was rushed into the emergency room. Ultimately, the healer called me inside. I went to his bedside and held his hand. He was so fragile now, all skin and bone. He told me, with great effort, that he had already written his will, leaving everything he owned to me. His voice trembled with unease, as though afraid I would refuse. I was never strong enough. I couldn't save my sister back then, but I managed to save up something. "Rose, you're my sister now. Please take it. Let me die knowing I can rest a little easier." In this world, nobody else understood each other's guilt and self-blame the way we did, because of the ones we lost, and because we had been powerless to stop it. Through blurred eyes, I nodded. He whispered again, words faltering. "From now on, if you ever get sick, promise me you'll get treated. Promise me you'll live well." I knew he had mistaken me for his sister again. He was speaking to the sister who had once chosen death over the cost of survival. But then, the hand I held suddenly tightened around mine with surprising strength. With one last effort, he said clearly, "Make no mistake, Rose. I never mistook you for someone else. I meant you, Rose. You must live on." All that time, I had worried endlessly about whether his surgery would succeed. I often hid in some corner of the hallway and cried quietly. Now, knowing he would soon leave me, I found I couldn't cry anymore. After Adrian passed, I fought a lawsuit against his father, who tried to snatch his inheritance. That man only cared about money. With the help of a private investigator and a lawyer, I gathered evidence of his fraud and crimes and finally had him sent to prison. While sorting through Adrian's belongings, I found a photo of him and his sister tucked inside his wallet. Carrying his ashes and that picture, I kept the promise I once made to him, to take him to see the Northern Lights. 6 months later, I returned to the Northern Territory. The day my plane landed, a call came in from Northvale as soon as I turned my phone back on. On the line was a stranger who introduced himself as a therapist. "I haven't been able to reach you these past 6 months. Someone surnamed Sanders gave me money to treat your psychological condition." I walked out of the airport into the bustling crowd as he continued. The amount he gave me weighed heavily on me. I'd like to know where you are, so I can continue helping you. Honestly, the therapist was very professional. Maybe he was right. Maybe the large sum really did make him uneasy. He even came all the way to the Northern Territory, setting up long-term counseling for me and checking in every day about my health and daily life. Though the old wounds still throbbed and hurt, at least I no longer went to rooftops, or threw myself into deep water or reached for pills. Sometimes I ran into Raymond. He had grown thin, shadows heavy on his face. Only 6 months had passed, but it felt like years. The moment Raymond saw me, he panicked and ran across the street. Car horns blared, brakes screeched. He nearly got hit as he stumbled his way toward me, disheveled and frantic. He stopped in front of me, trembling and silent for a long time. I stared at him and waited, but he said nothing. I turned to leave. Suddenly, he said urgently, "Rose, come home and have dinner with me, please." I thought for a moment and answered calmly, "No, I have work this afternoon. I had found a job." The therapist said keeping busy would help with the depression. Raymond quickly pressed on. "What about tomorrow?" I just looked at him in silence. He faltered, gave a bitter smile, and said softly, "Never mind, maybe next time." He knew it wasn't about time. His voice trembled. "I'm sorry I didn't take care of you the way Mom and Dad would have wanted." Softly, I answered, "It's okay. I'm doing all right." Truthfully, I didn't hold much resentment toward him anymore. I knew he was hurting too, but I couldn't go back to that house. As I walked away, I caught, from the corner of my eye, the redness in his eyes and the way he quickly turned his face to avoid mine. That night, back in my own place, the phone rang. It was a call from a hospital in Lansworn. The voice on the line told me they had found a suitable heart that had been registered earlier. The donor was an orphan who had once received much kindness from others. Now, dying after a car accident, he wished to give back to the world by donating his heart. It was a perfect match for Adrian. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring into the pitch-black night outside my window. After a long silence, my voice rasped as I whispered, "Thank you, but we don't need it anymore." The caller asked carefully, "Has a match already been found?" We heard Mr. Adrian had found a suitable heart donor in Northvale. I stayed quiet for a long time before finally murmuring, "Yeah." The voice on the other end sounded relieved. "That's wonderful. I'm so glad. I hope the surgery was successful." I replied flatly, "The surgery went well." I didn't hear the rest of what was said. After hanging up, I walked to the window and opened it. Outside, snow covered everything in white. Branches bent under its weight, snapping with sharp cracks that echoed in the still night. Time flew, and before I knew it, another deep winter had come. In the blur of falling snow, I thought I saw him again. The cold wind whipped my hair as he stood far away. His voice, loud and clear. "Hey Rose, we made a promise, remember? We'd stay strong and keep on living." "I will, Adrian. My last memory of you, I would never forget it."